and John has the day off. You know, this move comes after Border Patrol agents uncovered a massive tunnel connecting Mexico to El Paso. The elaborate tunnel believed to be used by the cartel, equipped with lighting, ventilation, making it an easy pathway to smuggle people and drugs.
Terrell County Texas Sheriff Thad Cleveland is on deck. He will react. But first, let's get right to Brooke Taylor. She's live from El Paso for us. Brooke, what is the latest out there? What are you seeing?
Sandra, well, we just learned that troops and Border Patrol agents out here about to get some much needed help. That's because Fox News has learned from a U.S. official that the Pentagon is going to be sending 1,500 troops along the southern border. They are going to go to different areas. But right now we are in front of Mount Cristo Rey. This is a known dangerous mountain completely controlled by the cartel. They decide what and who goes across this border. Border Patrol agents earlier this month discovered a massive tunnel connecting Mexico to El Paso. Shocking video from inside shows just how sophisticated it is. It's 6 feet tall, 4 feet wide, hidden within a storm drain system. Border Patrol agents believe cartels use this tunnel to smuggle in drugs and humans, both of which have become billion-dollar businesses for these cartels. Smugglers have long exploited these storm drains, though. They also use them to hide migrants while they are evading Border Patrol agents. The Border Patrol in El Paso here even has its own team. It's called the Space Entry Team. They are trained to deal with illegal entries, exploiting drainage systems and tunnels. Border Czar Tom Homan says this crackdown on cartels is going to save lives.
When President Trump locks this border down, less women and children be sex trafficked in this country. Less aliens will die making that journey. Under President Biden, we've had a record number of people die crossing that border. 600% increase in sex trafficking. And look at the 250,000 young Americans dead from fentanyl.
And last week, I spoke to a sex trafficking victim from South America. He was trafficked to Mexico and eventually across the border. He told me he was sold by his own family. He was beaten, he was threatened, and he was trafficked 6 to 8 times a day. Unfortunately, that is the harsh reality of many of these trafficking victims. Sandra.
All right, Brooke Taylor, live there in El Paso with that update for us. Brooke, thank you. Brett.
Now, we'll take a look to our northern border, where we're learning more about that U.S. Border Patrol agent who was shot and killed during a traffic stop in Vermont. Molly Line is live in Coventry, Vermont, with more on this. Molly, good afternoon. What's the latest?
Good afternoon, Brett. A German man is dead. Another person is hospitalized after a shootout roughly 48 hours ago that also claimed the life of Border Patrol agent David Chris Mayland. He was an experienced agent, 44 years old, killed on a frigid stretch of Interstate 91 just south of the Canadian border Monday afternoon in Coventry, Vermont. Per FBI investigators, during the course of the traffic stop, an exchange of gunfire occurred and Agent Mayland was struck. The FBI has refused to identify the 2 subjects involved. One was injured and taken to a local hospital. The other is dead, with the FBI noting that their partners at the Department of Homeland Security have now confirmed the deceased is a German national in the U.S. on a current visa. The Republican governor of Vermont expressed his condolences to Mayland's family and addressed frustrations with the few details being released.
The FBI is leading this investigation, and the Vermont State Police will continue to assist in any way they can. Information is still being collected, and we don't have more to share at this point, unfortunately.
Mayland was a canine handler and an Air Force veteran. His family says he was working security at the Pentagon at the time of 9/11. The family statement given to the Associated Press said he had a tremendous respect and pride for the work he did. He truly embodied service over self. A close-knit communities here on the Canadian border are the kind of small towns where everyone knows everybody, and local residents express shock at Mayland's death.
I feel so sorry for the family members of this particular gentleman. I mean, for what they're going through, there's no words to help them.
The flag here at the Customs and Border Station here in Derby Line, Vermont, remains at half-staff. The FBI also expressing their condolences to the partners of Agent Mayland and all who knew him, a man who led a long life of service. Brett?
Molly, thank you. Sandra?
All right, thank you. Let's bring in Sheriff Thad Cleveland of Terrell County, Texas, and retired Border Patrol agent. Sheriff, thank you very much for being here. What changes have you already seen since this administration took office.
Hey, good afternoon, Susan. It's great to be back on with you. And first, if I could, I just want to say, my thoughts and prayers are with my brothers and sisters in Green. I served 26 years in the Border Patrol and had a partner killed in the line of duty there in Nogales, Arizona. But to get to your question, look, I just got off a teleconference here in Big Bend Border Patrol sector with the Joint Operations Intelligence Center that's ran by the Department of Public Safety. And they said border-wide apprehensions are down. We knew that was going to happen. Look, President Trump has let it be known that since day one when he was elected and during his campaign that he was going to put more focus on the border and get it back under control. And we will certainly see that. I can guarantee those words.
All right. So as far as the crackdown at the border, I mean, how much time do you think this is going to take? What are you seeing as far as resources? We know this is going to have to be a massive effort.
First and foremost, it takes a strong leader in the White House letting the rest of the world know you're not coming to our country illegally. Well, we still have people come, of course. But then it's to bring the rule of law to the border, having consequences. If people cross, they're either going to be detained or they're going to be sent back to Mexico under expedited removal, or they're going to be given a notice to appear and kept in custody. So there's different consequences, different options that the U.S. Border Patrol has to have as a consequence along the U.S.-Mexico border. We've heard talk about U.S. Department of Defense coming to the border. Back in 2019 and 20, President Trump put active duty soldiers on the border, 1,500 of them. I was Border Patrol's representative to U.S. Army North, and they work directly under NORTHCOM, and they're the ones that put the plan into action. So we will see that again. It's nothing new, and I anticipate probably seeing some of that activity starting up here pretty quick.
Really interesting. All right, this was Tom Homan this morning on the progress that he's reporting has happened so far at the border in just a couple days.
The last 24 hours, total apprehensions on the southwest border, 766. Compare that to the 10 to 12,000 Biden had at one time. CBP-1 releases, 0. CHNV, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela releases, 0. Total of 766 across the entire southwest border. That is a game changer.
All right, so that's the progress made so far. But Thad, I want to ask you about this. The Pentagon planning for bigger U.S. troop role at the border. U.S. Northern Command, responsible for military operations in North America, was given a month to craft a plan to combat unlawful mass migration, narcotics trafficking, human smuggling, gang trafficking, and other criminal activities. The president specified that it should seal the U.S.-Mexico border and repel forms of invasion. So do you see a much bigger role for troops at the border?
So, Sandra, again, that's very similar to what we did back in 2019 and 2020. What will happen is the Department of Homeland Security will send over what's called an RFA, a request for assistance, and detail what they need. At that point, the Department of Defense and U.S. Army North, which is located out of San Antonio, Texas, at Fort Sam Houston, they'll take those plans. They'll have their liaison there, their Border Patrol agent that worked with them as I did, and then they'll start to work and see how they shape this up. But what we won't see at this time is an enforcement effort by the Department of Defense. And the reason that is because of what's called Posse Comitatus, back under the Treaty of Hidalgo that the United States had with Mexico. We vowed we wouldn't militarize our border. But what we will see is we will see military helping us in support roles, not actually getting out there and enforcing the law, in support roles such as observe and report. Even under the last administration the last President Trump, we had what was called a QRT team, quick reaction team. Yeah. And they were established and able to fly anywhere across the United States-Mexico border to provide a response if there was a need.
Sheriff, I've got to leave it there. But is it fair to say you feel optimistic about the changes so far and what's coming?
100%. It's going to be good. And it all starts at the border. I tell you what.
So much, yeah.
And we know it. We know it.
All right. We will check back with you on all of that. We appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much, Sheriff.
President Trump, did President Biden leave you a letter?
He may have. Wait. Don't they leave it in the desk? I don't know. Oh.
What's in there?
Thank you, Peter. It could have been years before we found it.
It was like an Oval Office Easter egg hunt and live on TV. President Trump's discovery of that letter from former President Biden with a little help from Fox's Peter Doocy. An exclusive look at what that letter says ahead.
Peter's always there right when you need him. All right. Plus, we are finding out more about the suspects arrested in connection with the burglary of Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. The evidence police found. That's next.
And more than 20 states are suing to stop President Trump's birthright citizenship order. Carrie Urban on that and new warnings for officials who try to block President Trump's border crackdown coming up. Breaking news, an update on that Nashville shooting we talked to you about in Antioch, Tennessee, just outside Nashville. Authorities are now saying that one student is dead in that shooting. Another was grazed by the bullet, and then the shooter turned the gun on himself, and then he was killed as well. About 2,000 students at that school located, it's a neighborhood of Nashville, about 10 miles southeast of downtown. Again, authorities having a news conference soon. We think that's all that they're going to give us. But again, one student wounded, another dead, and the shooter dead as well. Sandra.
Just a little more detail there on the shooter. We are learning the shooter, 17 years old, fired shots in the cafeteria there at Antioch High School, Antioch, Tennessee. You mentioned the second student who was shot, a female, a grazed wound to the arm. Thankfully, that student is listed in stable condition, has been taken to Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt. So we can report that that student is in stable condition. Sadly, the other student, the wounds were fatal. As we get more information on this, we will certainly continue to bring that to our viewers. All right, now this, a group of illegal migrants have been arrested in connection to the home break-in of Bengals quarterback Joey Burrow. Burrow is one of the many pro athletes who have had their homes burglarized in recent months. Alexis McAdams has this story. It's been bizarre, some of these, Alexis. What else are we learning?
Well, police say these migrants said, they didn't do it. They even gave a fake ID, Sandra, trying to hide who they were. But they were caught driving around with a Bengals hat and an LSU shirt. Both are items that investigators say were stolen from Joe Burrow's house. Now, these four men you're looking at are facing criminal charges after investigators say they broke into Joe Burrow's house the other month, smashing his window with a tool, then went right inside, taking whatever they wanted, according to police. So this happened back in December, right before Christmas, when Burrow was out in the football field for Monday Night Football playing the Cowboys. An officer pulls up, though, and explains what he saw at the scene. Listen.
We do have a shattered window into the bedroom. The bedroom has been ransacked.
And it wasn't just the Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow's house in Cincinnati, Ohio, but there have been a string of incidents targeting multi-million-dollar homes. Now police say these men, who are part of a South American gang and originally from Chile, could be linked to other cases. So what's their alibi? Well, they told police they were in Ohio to see the snow. But according to court documents, cell phone records placed them around Burrow's house at the time of the crime. And the quarterback says it's not just all about what was stolen.
I feel like my privacy has been violated in more ways than one, and way more is already out there than I would want out there and that I care to share.
So this case follows a security alert, Sandra, from the NFL, which warned of organized and skilled criminals that were targeting athletes' homes across the country because the people knew when they'd be out of town because they could watch them on TV. Kansas City Chiefs stars Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce also had their homes broken into. We'll keep an eye on it.
But in the case of Joe Burrow and some of the others, there was someone home at the time that this happened, which is really scary.
That's right.
All right, with those brand new details. Thank you, Alexis. All right, Brett.
President Trump's first legal battle tomorrow over his order to end birthright citizenship. Tomorrow's hearing involves 4 of the 22 states now suing to block it. This as the Justice Department also directs federal prosecutors to investigate any local officials who try to get in the way of President Trump's immigration law enforcement. Let's bring in Fox News legal editor Carrie Urban for more on this. Carrie, good afternoon.
Huh?
So this deals with the 14th Amendment. This deals with birthright citizenship, an illegal immigrant who could come to the country, give birth, and then that child becomes a U.S. citizen. What are the legal challenges here for those states that are suing?
Well, it's been understood for a long time that birthright citizenship is just the law of the land in this country, and that comes from an 1898 Supreme Court decision that involved a Chinese foreign national who was born to Chinese nationals who were living here in the United States, and at the time, it was next to impossible for Chinese foreign nationals to become citizens because of the Chinese Exclusion Act. So he was born here, he goes back to China, he tries to come back, and they don't want him back in. And he successfully litigated this at the Supreme Court, and the court there said that if you're born here, doesn't matter if your parents are, are citizens or not, you enjoy citizenship and those rights. However, in that case, they emphasized two things: that his parents were permanently domiciled, so they'd been here for quite some time. And of course, the context was, again, it was impossible, almost impossible for Chinese foreign nationals to become citizens at the time. And then two, and this was the controversial aspect back in 1898, the Supreme Court ignored two previous Supreme Court decisions that had said the opposite, that children born to aliens were not citizens. And they said, well, that really didn't come into play in the decisions themselves, which was true. So we're just going to ignore that as just, talk around it. So here we are, over 100 years later, and this has been debated for a long time. And there are scholars on both sides of the aisle. I think it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think the long game strategy here from the Trump team is to hopefully get it before the Supreme Court and see if we can get some clarity on it.
Yeah, I mean, for people who know the legal ways here, if an executive order trumping an amendment to the Constitution seems like it's tough to do unless there is wiggle room in the way that that's written.
That's right. And I think the wiggle room here, and this is what people have been debating for many, many years, is this clause that follows. So it's all persons born or naturalized in the U.S., and this is the key clause, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. What does that mean? Is it subject to the jurisdiction of the United States or of, a different country? And at the time when this was written, the 14th Amendment was written, a Michigan senator gave speeches around that clause and specifically said it excluded aliens. It was meant to address the fact that enslaved people were not considered citizens and their children, so it was meant to undo a very bad Supreme Court decision at the time.
Right.
But that's the interesting context that I don't think a lot of people know, that the senator who wrote it said, no, this doesn't include aliens. And so we'll see if it gets to the Supreme Court. They don't have to take it up if it gets there, but if they do, could be an interesting decision.
All right, so let's put on your former DOJ hat and you look at this order to kind of go after local officials who get in the way of President Trump's immigration orders.
It's a pretty significant directive, the fact that DOJ is directing all 93 U.S. attorneys' offices across the country to investigate and possibly prosecute any state or local actor who interferes in federal law enforcement, enforcing the laws on the books, and not just enforcing immigration law, but any requests from the federal government or the like. So think about what that could mean. And what's especially interesting about the directive is that if an office declines to prosecute, say, an actor or a state official who is resisting what the Trump administration is doing, they actually have to put it in writing in an urgent memo that goes straight to the AG and the Deputy Attorney General himself. So we'll see how it goes, but it's certainly a significant move.
Big deal. Carrie, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
I look at tariffs, they are an economic tool. That's it. They're an economic weapon, depending how you use it and why you use it and stuff like that. And, people argue, is it inflationary and non-inflationary? I would put in perspective, if it's a little inflationary, but it's good for national security, so be it. I mean, get over it.
An interesting embrace of President Trump's tariffs by J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon. He's also, by the way, warning about the stock market, and perhaps the stock market's too inflated. This seems like there is room for debate on both issues. Fox Business Panel our Fox Business panel, Brian Brenberg and Taylor Riggs, are here on that just ahead.
Plus, some schools banning cell phone use in classrooms. CB Cotton is live at a New Jersey high school making the change. CB?
Oh, hi, Brett. It's you today. Sorry, I was distracted by my cell phone. Not really, but teachers say this is happening all across the country, and they call it beyond frustrating. Well, the high school behind me thinks it has a fix. I'll have the details after the break.
All right, these are live aerial images of the Hughes fire coming into us from Los Angeles right now. Mandatory evacuation orders and warnings have been issued for this wildfire. It's burned at least now, I guess the update is 100 acres near the Los Angeles County community of Castaic. So this is what we're watching live right now. Obviously, this is not a good situation. It's been dubbed the Hughes Fire. It's located right off Lake Hughes Road, north of the reservoir. And we are looking at a red flag warning that is happening right there, and obviously not a good situation. The Hughes Fire burning in Los Angeles County. That's about 100 acres right now. We'll continue to monitor this for you as these images come in, and praying for all those in its path. All right, Brett.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul slamming the effects of teen cell phone usage while introducing new legislation to ban phone use in class. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy also pushing for a classroom phone ban, as some schools in the Garden State are already locking up cell phones. CB Cotton is live outside Ramsey High School in New Jersey. CB, how's this school keeping phones out of the classroom?
Hi, Brett. Well, students here are locking their phones in magnetically sealed pouches. They've only been used for about 2 weeks here at Ramsey High School. And as you can imagine, kids were not too happy about this at first. But now things are looking up to include students' faces in the hallways.
Instead of everybody just looking down at their phone and catching up, you say hi to a lot more people and just like, good morning, how are you?
When students get to class, teachers check to make sure the phones are locked in the pouches, making each classroom a distraction-free learning environment. When students leave for lunch or dismissal, they unlock the sealed pouches using a magnet to get back their smartphones. Ramsey High School is now a step ahead after New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy recently called for a statewide K-12 ban on cell phones. While Ramsey High School doesn't have any data yet on whether the new protocols will lead to better test scores, teachers are noticing more engagement in the classroom.
I feel like they're following the whole lesson and there's not that interruption, and they are asking good questions, taking notes.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul just announced a plan calling for no smartphones on school grounds. If approved by state lawmakers, schools would develop their own policy and a way for parents to contact their kids. Now, some parents are against these cell phone bans and argue their child needs a phone in case of an emergency. But some advocacy groups say that if there is a crisis, a child needs to be listening to the adult in the room and not be on a cell phone. Brett.
CB, thank you.
I think asset prices are kind of inflated. And, you know, by any measure, they're the top 10 or 15%. I'm talking about the U.S. stock market, but it's not true for stock markets around the world. And they say sovereign debt's priced pretty well. Credit spreads are all-time highs. So, yeah, they're elevated.
They're elevated.
And you need fairly good outcomes to justify those prices. And we're all hoping for that. And I think, you know, having pro-growth strategies helps make that happen. But there are negatives out there, and they can tend to surprise you.
JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon signaling caution over a, quote, kind of inflated stock market. His warning comes as Wall Street rallies to embrace President Trump's second term. We're looking at the Dow right now up 111 points. The S&P 500, which we know is a broader snapshot of the U.S. stock market, is at record highs today. So there's certainly some optimism out there. But to that point, the Big Money Show co-host Brian Brenberg, Taylor Riggs are here. Brian, does Jamie Dimon have a point? Is this overinflated, this stock market?
Well, I don't know about that. I think the American economy has a lot of juice left in it. I don't know that we're at levels where you could say this is a big bubble or something. I mean, the Trump economy is a big deal. We've got great new opportunities with lower taxes, lower regulation. You talk about, we're going to talk about $500 billion investments maybe in AI. There's a lot of good things here. So I think it's okay for the stock market to be excited. And frankly, I would say it makes more sense to me that you'd have an excited stock market now when you've got good policy compared to the last few years where most of what was fueling that was low interest rates.
I just want to point out, though, the stock market went up during those years as well.
No, that's what I'm saying. It went up, but we're all saying, oh, because money's cheap. And I'm saying, no, let's have a stock market go up when business environment is good. That's what we're dealing with now.
And it all comes down to what you think the future growth will be. So people could come to you and be like, NVIDIA is way overvalued. There's no way, by one measure that we do on finance, 50 times earnings. All that means way too expensive. Well, it's only expensive if you don't think that they can keep up with the growth rate that they've projected. A lot of people think the growth rate for NVIDIA is just getting started. So by that measure, it's not overvalued. So it just really depends on where you think about future growth. I think, Brian, to your point, And we were joking about a great investor, Sandra, that I'm sure you know, Stan Druckenmiller, over at, I believe, Duquesne.
Yeah, Larry and I were just talking about him.
Yeah, right. And he says he talks to CEOs everywhere. They just went from the most anti-business to the most pro-business.
There you go.
CEOs are like giddy with excitement.
That's how excited. The war room thing was starting to sound like a bad word on this Wall Street Journal report. And Jamie Dimon and his team are saying, no. We just have to put together teams so that we can figure out all this change. Sure. One of his right-hand gals was just talking in Davos saying, no, this is what should be done to create a business-friendly environment.
Right.
Here's Dimon on the tariffs even, which sort of scared the market a little bit. Right. And now they're saying this.
They are an economic tool. That's it. They're an economic weapon, depending how you use it and why you use it and stuff like that. And, people argue, is it inflationary and non-inflationary? I would put in perspective, if it's a little inflationary, but it's good for national security, so be it. I mean, get over it. Can they be used to bring people to the table? Yes. Is there some unfair trade? Yes. Is there some state-owned subsidies? Yes. Is the president going to use that way in his team? Yeah, and we'll see.
Whoa. So, okay, look, what he's doing here is he's talking about tariffs like a business guy. All right, let's be practical. What is the president trying to do? What are the dimensions where it could be costly? What are the dimensions where it could help? He's not being an ideologue. He's not saying, oh, how dare President Trump do tariffs? Inflation's going to skyrocket. And thank you for not doing that, because we've lived through real inflation, okay? We don't have to make it up when it comes to tariffs. So I like what he's doing there. That's a pragmatic approach.
Scott Bessent also had a great, the incoming Treasury Secretary, a great comment to one of the liberal senators who was coming at him during his hearing.
Right.
And he said, it's not an automatic 10% increase in your prices. Let's think about this. And if I believe anyone, I'm believing Scott Bessent. You get about a 4% change in the currency. Okay, and then maybe China lowers their prices to maintain the volume. So does it automatically mean everything that I buy just went up 10%? There are so many other factors that make this conversation so much more nuanced. If the tariffs go in at all, which Jamie Dimon was also saying they are a tool, we may not even get all of this.
It seems to also be embracing members of Trump's team. Case in point, some of the CEOs and heads of companies that have been by his side throughout inauguration and way before. Elon Musk. Jamie Dimon said this. Listen.
I mean, you got to look at Elon. I mean, SpaceX. I mean, Tesla. Neuralink. The guy is our Einstein, and so I like to be helpful to him and his company as much as we can. I think it is completely rational for someone to look at our government and say it's been ineffective. Government needs to be more accountable. It needs to be more efficient. It should be outcomes-based.
Oh. So Elon Musk retweets this or re-X's this, says, nice of him to say.
Yeah, it's about time, don't you think? Again, we've just gone from the most anti-business, anti-capitalist administration to arguably one of the most pro-business administrations. I would argue Elon Musk, SpaceX, government, Boeing. Boeing also does have some private money. Who's more effective at putting people in space? SpaceX. Get the government out of the way and let's give it back to the private investors. They know how to actually make business decisions.
Final.
I think Jamie Dimon is doing what a lot of people are doing right now and saying it's a good time to work together. Let's be friends. Let's build things. Let's make money. Let's make life better. After the last 4 years, I'm all in for that.
It adds to the point of so much unity to get things started here.
Yep.
And a lot of momentum. So we'll see what's done with that, and we'll keep watching it. Thanks to both of you.
Good
to see you. All right. Brett?
A little common ground, maybe. Frigid temperatures hitting North Carolina, where some Hurricane Helene victims are still living in tents or trailers. The president's heading out that way soon. Coming up, we'll check in with folks there, see how they're doing.
All right. Plus, the Trump administration setting a 5 p.m. deadline today for government offices to ditch DEI. Will the private sector follow suit? We'll ask Ben Domenech. He's next.
DEI officials out at the White House. President Trump's orders dismantling the office going into effect 5 p.m. tonight. Not just there, but across the administration. Now the Wall Street Journal reporting that anti-DEI activists are pushing major banks to follow suit. Joining us now, the Spectator editor-at-large, Fox News contributor Ben Domenech. 5 p.m. is this deadline. I talked about it with Mary Catherine earlier. What about the extension of this, and does it have bleed over into other places?
I think it absolutely does, Brett. And I think that, we can look back, obviously, at the Supreme Court case that found in the instance of affirmative action within the college environment as something that I think really emboldened a lot of these conservative activist investors. And we see major institutions, including the Heritage Foundation, obviously, taking these steps of getting involved in these major entities to make a point, to make this argument. Now, we have seen, of course, them try to do this before, and it's had very little truck in terms of, small percentages of people voting in favor of these types of steps. But I think that something has really changed with the re-election of Donald Trump, and that's, I think, a signal to all of these different entities that the old approach to DEI that really was spawned after the Summer of Love, the George Floyd reaction, that had all of these companies moving in the direction of DEI to cover for past sins or perhaps imagined ones, and also, of course, committing billions of dollars for social justice causes and the like, that it's a new day. Something has shifted, and that's no longer what people really want to see from corporate America.
I mean, earlier this year, we saw Walmart, a big company, ditching DEI. I think we'll see others. We're waiting Sean Hannity's interview with President Trump from the Oval Office. We expect to get some clips of that. Covered what I'm told is numerous topics, both personal and substantive. But this is like drinking from a fire hose as far as all that's coming at us just in the press first couple of days.
Well, one thing that I think is really a benefit, though, of that is I think it's dealing with reality. Susie Wiles and others have indicated that the first 18 months is really going to be key when it comes to determining the agenda of this second term and how successful it is. I don't think that he's surrounded by people who have the illusion that going into the next midterm that Republicans are going to have an automatic advantage, despite perhaps some of the map being friendly. And because of that, I think that they're moving very quickly on all of these different points.
So we do have our first clip from Sean Hannity's exclusive interview in the Oval Office. This deals with the big picture issue of returning to office. Let's take a listen.
Let's talk about the moment you walked back in this office, this desk, this room, your carpet. How'd you feel?
Well, it was a lot of work. And as you know, I felt that we shouldn't have had to necessarily be here. Could have been done, a lot of work. Could have been, it would have been over. We wouldn't have inflation. We wouldn't have had the Afghanistan disaster. We wouldn't have October 7th with Israel, where so many people were killed. And you wouldn't have a Ukraine war going on. But with all that being said, I think it's bigger. It's bigger than if it were more traditional.
Only the second time in history somebody didn't have consecutive terms.
Yeah. Well, they say it's historically bigger. I don't know about that. But I can say it showed us a couple of things. It showed us that the radical left, their philosophies and policies are horrible.
He gets introspective, I'm told, in this interview. But he's also, if you think about it, it's been, after the loss in 2020, there's 4 years of preparing for this relaunch. And all of the people that were part of America First and part of this organization have had all this time to prepare for this launch, as he's talking about there.
Look, he's coming in with a completely different situation than he came in 2017, when no one was prepared for it, when you had a Republican leadership that was moving in different directions, had different priorities. Now I think you have much more unity, not full unity, but certainly more than you had then. Look, the other thing is, just keep in mind, look back to August of 2023 and everything that's happened since then. If you look back at that point, he's surrounded by all of this legal pressure and lawfare. It looks like someone who's just being drowned with all of these things. The idea that he would be back in the Oval Office a year and a half later would seem such a long shot. And yet here he is, and not just back there, but with, I think, real momentum and a mandate from the people to make dramatic change.
Again, that exclusive interview is said to go very long. There's going to be a lot of materials at 9 p.m. Eastern Time tonight on Sean Hannity's show. Ben, thanks.
Good to be with you.
Sandra?
All right, Brett. Many Hurricane Helene survivors still right now are braving frigid winter temperatures without stable housing, and in some cases don't even have heat. Now, a local farmer is stepping in to help. That farmer will join us next. is crippling much of the nation, including people in western North Carolina, the same area hit hard by Hurricane Helene. And still some Helene survivors there without homes or reliable shelter have been forced to brave the cold winter temperatures, in some cases even struggling to find heat. James Lunsford is a local farmer there and knows the situation all too well. He donated many acres of his land to be used for RVs after the storm and has since seen firsthand what those locals are up against in this harsh winter weather. James joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us. A hero to many right now. What have you been able to step in and do to help?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. Basically, just providing housing for a lot of the folks that were losing homes and living in tents and living in their cars and shelters that vouchers were running out.
You know, I talked to country singer Eric Church. He's working down there as well, trying to do similar things. What does it mean that the president mentioned North Carolina and actually is heading down that way as he travels, we're told, over the next few days?
He's supposed to be down Friday, I heard, probably around the Asheville, Swannanoa area.
Yeah. What does it mean to you?
I'm just glad it'll bring more recognition.
Yeah, that's obviously a big part of it is, you know, making sure that these folks are not forgotten and move on. And we keep circling back because we're really interested on everything that is being done to help. And you are part of the solution. I know that you are talking to some people who just lost absolutely everything. They still don't have a home. They still don't have heat in some cases. What sort of are some of the people that you're talking to? And tell us a story about somebody you've been able to help.
Well, that's hard to do since I have over 100.
Wow.
But there's from families to single people to couples just that was displaced because basically we turned no one away and try to get them in out of the cold.
Nice.
Well, James, what's the biggest thing that's needed down there? If somebody wants to help and help you all, what's needed?
Well, our biggest need right now, they're good on materialistic things, but now it's just like feeding a family of 100. We've got to keep them with their normal infrastructure, gas for their generators, propane for their heat, food, just the normal, well, daily essentials and not daily essentials, such as propane and gas and all that.
You know, James, something we've been just in awe of is the resilience and the sense of community and the coming together and just some of the darkest moments for you all there. How would you describe the morale of folks there who have just been trying to hang on until warmer months come and they're able to get some shelter?
They're tough. They're very tough.
Well,
they show more resilience than I would have.
That's an amazing statement, and our best to you as you try to help so many right now. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Well, I appreciate it, but yeah, anybody needs any more info, just go to the Facebook page, and they can get the whole story there.
We thank you for your efforts. Thank you, James. All right, we'll be right back.
I was given the option. They said, sir, would you like to pardon everybody, including yourself? I said, I'm not going to pardon anybody. We didn't do anything wrong. And we had people that suffered. They're incredible patriots. We had people that suffered. You had Bannon put in jail. You had Peter Navarro put in jail. You had people that suffered. And far worse than that, they've lost their fortunes. They've lost their nest egg.
President Trump on pardons with Sean in the Oval Office. Will be fascinating to see that. Sandra, it's been great to be with you this afternoon.
You as well, Brett. We'll see you at 6 o'clock tonight, and more from that interview will be tonight with Hannity. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sandra Smith.
Here's Martha.